The desperate colony. The sky above the alien colony was not blue. It was a deep red, filled with the burning glow of enemy fire. Towers of smoke rose from broken defense walls, and the ground shook with every distant explosion. The colony had once been a place of trade and life, but now it was only fear and silence. The colony's people gathered inside shelters carved into the stone hills. Their eyes were wide and their voices were low. Mothers held children close, trying to cover their ears from the thunder outside. Old men sat against the walls whispering that no one was coming. They had sent a distress call days ago, but no answer came. On the edge of the colony, the command bunker still held a few leaders. The governor, his uniform torn and face pale, stared at the holographic map of their world. Red marks filled the screen. Enemy ships, enemy troops, enemy fire. Their few defense turrets were already gone, destroyed in the first assault. Only smoke and rubble remained where once they had stood tall. "We have nothing left," one officer whispered. "We are alone." The governor wanted to shout, but his throat was too dry. He knew the truth. No empire would risk ships for a small colony. No ally would come, they were not important enough. The galaxy was vast and the strong only cared for themselves. Outside the bunker, the sound of laughter came from the enemy speakers. The attackers had grown bold. Their ships floated high above, like shadows covering the stars. From the speakers came cruel voices in a language all could understand. "Your cries will not be answered. No help will arrive. Your lives are ours." The people trembled. Some cried, some prayed, but none believed in rescue anymore. Even the children had stopped asking questions. They only waited for the end. Far beyond the hills, in the silence of space, the battle was different. Enemy ships circled in the blackness, like vultures. They kept their weapons hot, ready to burn the last resistance. They believed no one would dare challenge them. For weeks, they had crushed colonies one by one, and no one had stopped them. But this colony was different. Not because of its power, not because of its leaders, but because of something none of them could see. In the blackness beyond their sensors, something stirred. Back in the command bunker, the governor lowered his head. "If this is the end," he whispered, "then let it be quick." His officers looked down, ashamed. There was no fight left in them. Then something changed. One young technician still at her console frowned. Her screen flickered with static. "Governor," she began. Her voice was small, almost afraid. "There is movement at the edge of the system." The governor shook his head. "It is nothing, a trick of the sensors. Ignore it." But the girl did not stop. Her hands tapped the controls again and again. The static grew clearer, forming shapes. Something large, something cold, something hidden in the dark. "Sir," she said louder, her eyes wide. "It is not debris. It is a ship." The officers stirred, but then quickly dismissed her. One man laughed bitterly. "Another enemy vessel. Let them come. The end is already here." "No," the girl whispered. Her eyes were fixed on the growing shadow on her screen. "It is not like them. It is bigger. Much bigger." Above the colony, the enemy commander also noticed the strange reading. He leaned forward in his chair, narrowing his eyes at the anomaly at the far edge of space. "What is that?" he demanded. His crew scrambled to scan, but the readings failed. Systems froze. The object refused to be identified. "It must be a sensor glitch," one officer said quickly. "The colony's death is all that matters. Ignore the shadows." But the commander was not so sure. His hands clenched the armrests. He had fought many battles, but something about that silent shape in the blackness made his heart uneasy. Down below, the colonists felt it too. The children who had stopped asking questions now lifted their heads. The air felt heavy, like before a storm. The mothers held their children tighter, but their eyes turned to the sky, and in that sky, far beyond what their eyes could see, the shadow grew. Slowly, Silently, it moved closer, hidden in the darkness of the void. The technician whispered again, almost as if afraid her own words would break the moment. It is not enemy. It is something else. The governor looked at her for the first time, and in her eyes he saw something he thought was gone forever. Hope. The screen flickered once more, then stabilized. The shadow took shape. Long. Massive. Silent. The governor's breath caught in his throat. He could not speak. None of them could. The enemy commander's ship lit up with alarms. Impossible, he shouted, his voice shaking. From the blackness of space, a warship stepped forward. Its hull was darker than the void itself, its size dwarfing every vessel around it. No insignia marked its side, no signal declared its name. But its presence was enough, and though no one yet said the word, all who saw it knew. Human. The warship had come. The silence of space. The red sky above the colony calmed for a moment, as if the battle outside had paused. The sound of explosions faded into silence, but the silence was heavier than the noise. Inside the shelters, people dared to breathe again, but their breaths were quick and shallow. The air was thick with fear. In the command bunker, the governor's officers leaned closer to the glowing screen. The shadow was still there at the edge of the system, moving with steady speed. It did not broadcast a name. It did not answer calls. It only drifted closer. Identify it, the governor ordered, his voice sharp but trembling. We can't, sir, the technician replied. Her fingers worked quickly, trying to force the scanners to give more detail. It blocks our systems. It's like it doesn't want to be seen. The officers exchanged uneasy looks. Ships that large did not move silently. They did not hide their heat or their signals. But this one was different. Above the planet, the enemy commander stared at the same readings. His fleet floated like a wall of steel across the stars, engines burning bright. His voice filled the comms, mocking the colony again. Do not hope, he said coldly. No one will save you. No empire dares to fight us. You will be forgotten in the dirt. The colonists heard his voice through the speakers scattered across the city ruins. Some wept quietly. Others cursed. A few simply shut their eyes, waiting for the end. But still, the shadow crept closer. The enemy commander barked at his crew. What is it? Give me the reading, one officer stammered. Sir, it does not match any design. Not trade, not military, not even pirate. It's unknown. The commander's face hardened. Unknown meant danger. Yet he forced himself to smile. Then it is nothing. A broken station, maybe. A dead hulk drifting in space. It will not save them. He ordered his fleet to begin the final strike on the colony. Ships adjusted, weapons powered, and targeting systems locked. The red glow in the sky flared again as fire rained down. The ground shook violently. Whole blocks of the colony collapsed into dust. People screamed as shelters trembled and ceilings cracked. The governor gripped the table, his face pale. Enough, he whispered. We cannot survive another wave. But before the enemy could finish, a sudden wave of static swept through their systems. The commander froze. His screens blinked. His ships lost targeting. What is happening? He roared. The officers looked helpless. The anomaly, sir, it is interfering with us. The governor's bunker flickered too, but the technician held her console steady. Her voice broke through the chaos. Governor, the shadow, it's closer now. It is not drifting, it is coming. The governor turned, his heart pounding. Coming? Towards us? Yes, sir, she said. Her voice trembled, but her eyes shone with a strange light. It is moving against the enemy line. For the first time, whispers filled the bunker. Could it be help? Could someone actually come for them? The enemy commander's smile faded. His ships tried to lock on the approaching shadow, but their sensors only showed static. No weapons could get a clear aim. In the colony below, the people felt something strange. The fear was still there, but underneath it, a new feeling grew. The children whispered to their mothers, Something is out there. The mothers hushed them, but their own eyes lifted to the sky. The silence stretched. Enemy guns paused. The shadow stopped moving, holding at the edge of the fleet. No light, no signal, only darkness. Then, a single sound echoed across both the colony and the enemy fleet. A deep pulse, like a heartbeat through the void. The governor's officers flinched. The colonists gasped. Even the enemy commander froze, his eyes narrowing. "Translate it," he snapped. "It's not a language," his officer whispered. "It's a warning." The commander slammed his fist on the armrest. "Fire at it, now!" Dozens of ships turned their weapons on the silent shadow. Missiles launched, beams fired, and energy bolts streaked through space. Explosions lit up the void in a brilliant storm. The colonists held their breath, but when the light faded, the shadow was still there, unmoved, untouched. The enemy's most powerful weapons had done nothing. The commander's crew looked in terror. Impossible. No ship can take that. The shadow pulsed again, the deep sound rolling across space like thunder. Inside the bunker, the technician whispered the word that was rising in every mind. Human. No, one wanted to believe it, yet the word felt right. The stories had said humanity was gone, vanished into legend, their warships destroyed or hidden. But now, here, in the colony's darkest hour, something had stepped out of the blackness. Tuyo, governor, stood straighter, his voice firm for the first time. "Tell the colony to hold on. Something has come for us." The colonists lifted their heads as the strange shadow began to move again. Slow, steady, unstoppable, straight toward the enemy fleet. The silence of space was about to end. Shadows. Stir space was quiet again, but it was not the same silence as before. The enemy fleet floated in formation, their ships glowing with weapon fire, but not one commander dared to press the attack. All eyes turned to the black shape that stood at the edge of the system, still and waiting. The governor of the colony leaned closer to the display. The shadow was bigger now. The image on the screen was blurred, but even with broken sensors, the size was impossible to deny. It was not a small ship. It was not even the size of a cruiser. It was something far larger. The technician's voice trembled. "Governor, the scans can't measure its length. It stretches past our reading range." The officers muttered among themselves. Some shook their heads in disbelief. Others whispered the word again. Human. The governor silenced them. His eyes stayed fixed on the black silhouette. He wanted to believe, but he also feared. Legends of humanity were not just stories of saviors. They were stories of destroyers. If this warship belonged to them, would it save the colony, or burn it to ash along with their enemies? Above, in the enemy flagship, the commander paced. His claws dug into the steel floor as his crew avoided his gaze. "What is it doing?" he demanded. "It does not move, sir," his officer stammered. "It only watches us." The commander's teeth bared in anger. "Then we break it apart." But before he could give the order, his ship's lights flickered. The entire fleet's sensors crashed into static again. Every monitor lit with symbols that made no sense, lines of code flowing like rivers. The shadow stirred. At first it was only a faint glow, small lights sparking across its hull, like stars waking in the void. The colony's people lifted their heads as the faint shimmer reflected across the skies. The children pressed against the bunker doors, whispering in awe. "It's alive," one of them murmured. The enemy commander froze, watching the lights grow brighter, stretching across a hull so massive it seemed endless. This was no drifting wreck. This was no ghost. It was a warship, awakening after a long sleep. The technician's voice shook. "Governor, it is powering up." The governor's heart pounded. He wanted to shout for joy, but he held his tongue. This moment was fragile. Hope could break as easily as fear. On the enemy bridge, alarm screamed. The commander slammed his fist. "Form battle lines. Target it now." His ships moved quickly, forming into a spear to pierce the shadow. Dozens of weapons locked on. The void lit with the glow of charged cannons. But the shadow was faster. It moved without sound, sliding through the void like a predator among prey. Its massive frame shifted into the light of a distant star, and the enemy saw its full size for the first time. Gasps filled the bridge. Even hardened warriors fell silent. "It is bigger than a dreadnought," one officer whispered. "No," another said in fear. "It is bigger than all of them combined." The hull stretched like a floating mountain, darker than the night around it. Plates of black armor gleamed faintly as its hidden lights blinked alive. Across its side, faint scars showed, marks of old battles, burns, and impacts, but it still stood whole, unbroken. The commander swallowed hard. He had mocked the colony minutes ago, laughing at their hope. But now, staring at this giant, his words felt empty. The colonists, hidden underground, did not know its full size, but they felt it. Their shelters shook not from enemy fire, but from the resonance of the awakening ship. Some fell to their knees, tears in their eyes. Others whispered prayers of thanks, and then across every channel, enemy, colony, and space itself, a voice spoke. It was calm. It was human. "Stand aside." The words were few, but they were like thunder. The governor's officers froze, staring at one another. The enemy commander's blood ran cold. He shouted in rage to cover his fear. "Fire everything!" The fleet obeyed. Beams of burning energy streaked through the void. Missiles screamed across the blackness. Cannons roared like storms. The sky above the colony lit up brighter than a sun. The colonists screamed, believing the giant would be crushed under such power. But when the fire cleared, the warship was still there, untouched. The commander's mouth hung open. His weapons had been useless. On the warship's hull, lines of blue light now glowed, tracing across its frame like veins of fire. Cannons hidden in the dark metal rotated slowly into place. The silence of space filled with the promise of something unstoppable. The technician whispered, "Governor, it is preparing to strike." The governor stood tall. His voice no longer shook. "Then let the galaxy witness." The shadow shifted again, and the first of its weapons locked onto the enemy fleet. The air in the colony's shelters grew heavy, as if the entire world waited for the next moment. And in that tense silence, all knew one truth. Humanity had returned. The human warship. The silence of space shattered. The enemy fleet, still burning with the glow of its weapons, froze as the shadow finally stepped into the light of the nearby star. Its full size could no longer be denied. The warship stretched across the void like a mountain of steel. Its armor was dark, its scars deep, but nothing could hide the power radiating from its frame. On the colony below, the people poured out of shelters despite the danger. They wanted to see. They needed to see. Their faces tilted toward the red sky, eyes wide with fear and wonder. Children clutched their mothers, and soldiers who had thrown down their rifles now stood tall again. In the command bunker, the governor whispered, "It is real." His voice cracked, heavy with disbelief. "It is human." The technician nodded, tears running down her cheeks. "They came for us." But the enemy commander refused to believe. His claws scraped against the steel of his chair. "No, humanity is gone. They are myths, nothing more." His voice shook as he pointed at the screen. "Destroy it." His fleet obeyed. Dozens of ships fired at once, their weapons blazing with desperate energy. Missiles streaked across the void. Beams lit the sky like lightning storms, and cannons thundered in fury. The warship did not move. The fire struck its hull, but nothing broke. No armor bent. No shield cracked. It stood silent, absorbing everything the enemy could throw. Then, in that silence, the warship answered. Panels slid open along its sides, revealing rows of massive railguns, each the size of a cruiser. Cannons emerged from hidden ports, glowing with blue-white fire. A low hum rolled through the void, deep enough that the colonists on the ground felt it in their bones. The warship fired. One railgun roared first, A single slug of metal shot across the void faster than light. It pierced an enemy destroyer, tearing through its heart. The ship split apart in a silent explosion, drifting as fire consumed it. Then the other guns joined. The void became a storm. Rail slugs ripped holes through cruisers. Beams cut ships in half. Missiles chased down fighters like wolves after prey. Every shot was precise, clean, merciless. The colony shook with every flash above them. Children cried, but their tears were not of fear. They were tears of awe. The people who had waited for death now cheered through the rumble of war. "Look," someone shouted. "The enemy burns." The governor clenched his fist, his heart surging with pride. "The galaxy forgot humanity," he whispered, "but they did not forget how to fight." On the enemy flagship, panic spread. The commander shouted orders, but his voice broke with fear. "Pull back, break formation." His fleet scrambled, but it was too late. The human warship advanced slowly, step by step, like a predator stalking weak prey. Its railguns fired again, tearing apart two more enemy cruisers. Drones launched from its belly, swarming like steel locusts, each one armed with weapons deadlier than the colony had ever seen. The commander stared at the wreckage, his throat dry. Ships that had crushed entire worlds now died like insects before. "The storm. This is not possible," he whispered. "No one can do this." But the truth was clear. This was not no one. This was humanity. The colonists cheered louder as another enemy vessel fell in flames. The technician in the bunker turned, eyes glowing with hope. "Governor, they're winning." The governor nodded, though his mind still raced. He wondered why the humans had come. They had vanished from the galaxy long ago, leaving only rumors and old scars. Why now? Why here? But there was no time for answers. The warship spoke again. Its voice rolled across every comm channel, steady and calm but filled with power. "Stand aside." The words echoed through the enemy fleet, through the colony shelters, through the governor's bunker. The colonists wept. The enemy commander shook with rage. "Never," he screamed. "We will not bow to ghosts." His last words were drowned in fire. The warship's central cannon lit with blinding blue light. It fired once, and the enemy flagship vanished in a storm of burning debris. The commander and his pride were gone in a single strike. The rest of the fleet broke. Ships turned to flee, their formations collapsing. Some collided in their panic. Others were torn apart by drones before they could escape. The mighty armada that had promised the colony's end was scattered like dust in the wind. The colony below erupted in cheers. People hugged one another, falling to their knees in joy. Hope, once buried, now rose higher than ever. But the governor did not cheer. He stared at the screen, his expression heavy. He knew what this moment meant. If humanity had returned with such power, the galaxy would never be the same again. Above them, the warship's guns went silent. Its drones returned. Its lights dimmed, leaving only the dark outline of its impossible size. And then, as quietly as it had come, the warship began to turn away. The technician gasped. "Wait, are they leaving?" The governor's hands clenched. He wanted to call out, to beg them to stay, but the warship gave no answer. It had done what it came to do. It had reminded the galaxy of a forgotten truth. Humanity had not vanished. They had been waiting, and now the stars themselves trembled. Fire from the dark. The sky burned brighter than any dawn the colony had ever seen. Enemy ships, once proud and unstoppable, now broke apart like dry wood before a storm. Fire rained across the void, lighting the blackness with orange and blue streaks of wreckage. The colony people stood outside their shelters, staring at the sky. Their mouths hung open, their eyes wide. For days, they had waited for death. Now, before their eyes, death was falling on their enemies instead. Children pointed upward, their small voices rising in excitement. "Look, another one, it's gone." Indeed, another enemy cruiser split apart, its engines torn from its body by a single rail slug. The debris drifted downward, glowing like falling stars. In the bunker, the governor could hardly believe what he saw. His officers whispered like men seeing miracles. The technician, tears still on her cheeks, laughed as she reported every new explosion. "They can't stop it, Governor," she said breathlessly. "Every shot hits, every strike kills. The enemy, they don't stand a chance." But even as joy filled the colony, the enemy refused to surrender. On the surviving ships, the new commander, a scarred veteran who had once believed nothing could shake their empire, gritted his teeth. His fleet was breaking, but he would not allow them to scatter. His pride screamed louder than his fear. "Rally," he barked. "We are not beaten. Focus all fire on the giant." The fleet pulled back into formation, though the lines were broken and messy. Fighters swarmed forward, thousands of small craft darting like insects, firing everything they had. Larger ships prepared their heaviest cannons, beams charging for one desperate strike. The colony shook as the enemy weapons lit up again. The people gasped, thinking the humans might be overwhelmed at last. But the warship only advanced. From its black hull, new weapons came alive. Drones swarmed outward in perfect order, each one glowing with cold blue light. They spread like wings, filling the void. The drones opened fire. Thin, precise beams cut through the swarm of fighters, each shot killing cleanly. Hundreds of ships vanished in seconds, erased as if they had never existed. The survivors panicked, crashing into one another in their frenzy to escape. The larger enemy ships unleashed their combined firepower. Massive beams crossed the void. Missiles screamed. Plasma tore across the dark. The governor's heart stopped. So much fire. No ship could survive it. Then the human warship answered. A barrier of shimmering light spread from its core. The enemy's fire struck, but instead of piercing, it bent. Missiles exploded harmlessly against the shield. Beams scattered like water against stone. The warship moved forward, untouched, its massive frame glowing with calm power. The governor whispered in awe, "Shields. They have shields." The technician shook her head, her voice trembling. "Not shields, sir. Something greater. Something we've never seen." The colony people cheered again, their fear turning into wild hope. For the first time in living memory, they believed they might live to see tomorrow. The human warships. Cannons roared again. Entire enemy battleships exploded in silence, torn apart before they could even finish charging their weapons. Drones swirled between survivors, tearing apart what little resistance remained. It was not a battle anymore. It was a hunt. On the enemy flagship, the scarred commander's voice broke. "No, this is not war. This is extermination." He knew the truth. They had awakened something they could not fight. The human warship slowed. It allowed the surviving enemy ships to see, to understand. It made them watch as their proud armada died one by one. And then, in the cold silence, the warship spoke again. Its voice was steady, calm, but sharp as a blade. "Your time is over." The words rolled across every comm, reaching every colonist and every enemy. The people cried out in joy. The enemies froze in terror. The central cannon lit once more, brighter than anything before. The beam fired, and half the enemy fleet vanished in a single strike. Ships that had ruled the stars for centuries turned into nothing but dust and fire. The surviving ships broke completely. Some turned to flee, engines burning at full power. Others shut down their weapons, hoping to be spared. But the human warship did not chase. It did not need to. The message had already been written in fire. The colony exploded in cheers. Men and women embraced, children shouted, soldiers raised their weapons again, not in despair, but in triumph. But inside the bunker, the governor remained silent. His officers looked at him in confusion. "Governor, we are saved. Why do you not rejoice?" The governor's eyes stayed fixed on the warship. His voice was low, heavy with thought. "Because nothing this powerful comes without reason. They did not come for us alone. This is only the beginning." Above, the warship dimmed its lights again. Its drones returned, slipping back into hidden ports. The massive cannons cooled, their glow fading into silence. It floated there, silent once more, darker than the void around it. The colony waited, holding its breath. Would it stay? Would it speak again? And then, with slow grace, the warship began to turn. Its engines burned faintly, pulling it away from the planet. The people cried out, "No, don't leave us!" But the warship gave no answer. It moved into the blackness, silent and unstoppable, leaving behind only wreckage and fire. The technician wiped her tears, whispering to herself, "They saved us, but where will they go now?" The governor closed his eyes. He knew the truth. The galaxy would not sleep easily after this. The humans had shown their hand. Every empire, every fleet, every world would now fear the dark, for from the blackness, fire had come, and it would come again. Wrath of humanity, the blackness of space still glowed with fire. Wreckage drifted everywhere, burning fragments of ships that had once carried the enemy's pride. Yet even in their defeat, the survivors refused to accept what stood before them. On the remaining enemy ships, officers shouted desperately, voices sharp with fear. Their scarred commander, shaken but not broken, roared into his comms. "Gather everything. If we die fighting. Focus all weapons on the human vessel. Drain the reactors. Burn the cores. Give it everything." His ships obeyed. Engines flared, cannons charged, and missiles loaded. For a moment, the void filled with the hum of war one last time. From the colony below, the people looked up in dread. Their cheers fell quiet. Even after all the victories they had just witnessed, the size of the new enemy barrage shook their hope. If so much firepower struck at once, could even the human warship survive? In the command bunker, the technician gripped her console tightly. Her voice trembled as she called out, "Governor, they are gathering for one final strike." The governor clenched his jaw. "Then let us see if the stories are true." Above, the warship did not move. It floated in silence, black as the void, as if daring them to attack. The enemy unleashed everything. Thousands of missiles streaked across the dark, glowing trails, cutting the night like falling comets. Cannons fired in unison, beams burning, brighter than suns. Energy weapons flared with such power that the entire sky turned white. The colony shook. Buildings crumbled from the force of the distant blasts. People covered their ears, children screamed, mothers prayed. When the fire cleared, silence fell again. And then the truth was revealed. The warship still stood, untouched. The white fire faded from its armor, slipping away like waves against an unbroken cliff. Its black hull gleamed faintly, glowing now with deep blue veins of energy. The sound that followed was not a voice, but a hum so powerful that the colonists felt it in their bones. It was the sound of a giant awakening fully. The governor's officers stared in disbelief. One whispered, "It cannot be killed." The technician shook her head slowly. "No, sir. It cannot even be scratched." The enemy commander collapsed into his chair, his claws shaking. "Monsters," he muttered. "They are monsters." The warship's lights grew brighter. Hidden doors slid, open across its massive frame. What came next froze every survivor in fear. Dozens, no hundreds of smaller vessels detached from its sides. They were not fighters in the way the enemy knew. They were sharp, angular, each armed with weapons as advanced as entire fleets. They moved in perfect formation, silent and merciless. The drones swarmed outward like a living storm. They struck first at the fleeing ships. No mercy, no hesitation. Each enemy vessel was cut apart, their engines destroyed, their cores ripped. "Open!" Ships exploded in fire, their remains drifting like broken bones in the void. The commander screamed for retreat, but there was nowhere left to run. The drones were everywhere, faster than anything his fleet could launch. The human warship itself moved now. Slow, steady, unstoppable. Its massive cannons roared, tearing apart battleships as if they were made of paper. Each shot was final. No enemy ship survived 2 strikes. The colony below erupted again with cheers, though fear mixed with their joy. The people understood. This was not just victory. This was dominance. The humans were showing the galaxy not only that they had returned, but that they could end any fleet they chose. The warship advanced until it loomed over the planet, blotting out the stars. The colonists gazed upward in awe and terror. The voice came once more, rolling across every channel. Calm, steady, cold. Remember. Just that single word. Yet it struck harder than any weapon. The enemy survivors broke. Some abandoned their ships entirely, ejecting into the void in desperation. Others overloaded their cores, destroying themselves rather than face capture. The galaxy's proud armada had been erased. The governor leaned forward against the console, his voice low. This is the wrath of humanity. The technician turned to him, her eyes wide. Governor, they saved us. But do you think they will stay? The governor shook his head. His eyes did not leave the massive warship above them. No, they did not come to stay. They came to remind the galaxy what they are. Above, the warship's drones returned, vanishing back into hidden bays. Its cannons dimmed, the glow fading into silence once more. The massive hull turned, engines rumbling like distant thunder. It did not thank the colony. It did not ask for reward. It gave no sign of friendship, no sign of anger. It simply left, silent and cold, returning to the blackness it had emerged. From the people cried out, begging it not to go. But the warship did not hear or did not care. The governor whispered as he watched it vanish. They are not saviors, they are not conquerors. They are something far greater, something the galaxy has feared to remember. And in the silence that followed, everyone knew one truth. The humans had not returned to join the galaxy. They had returned to warn it. The message to the galaxy, the colony was silent. Not because of fear anymore, but because every throat was tight, every heart too heavy to speak. Above them, the black warship that had saved their world slipped farther and farther into the void. Its shape grew smaller, but even as it vanished, its presence seemed to linger, pressing on their minds like a weight. Children clung to their parents, asking questions no one could answer. Who were they? Why did they come? Will they return? The governor stood on the command balcony, watching the last glimmer of the warship fade into darkness. His officers surrounded him, but none dared to speak. Finally, the technician broke the silence, her voice trembling. They left us alive, Governor. That must mean something. They didn't destroy us. The governor's eyes were hard. No. But they wanted us to see. They wanted everyone to see. Word spread quickly across the colony. Messengers carried the story from shelter to shelter, street to street. A human warship saved us. A human warship returned. The people wept, some with joy, others with confusion. Many dropped to their knees, giving thanks to gods they had abandoned days earlier. But not all hearts were calm. Some whispered with fear. If the humans had such power, why had they hidden all this time? Why had they returned now? And why did they leave without a word of comfort? Were they guardians or executioners? Far beyond the colony, signals raced across the stars. The story could not be contained. Fragments of video, broken sensor logs, desperate enemy transmissions, all carried the same impossible truth. Across the galaxy, leaders, warlords, and councils sat in silence as the images played before them, a single human warship tearing apart an entire armada. Some leaders shouted that it was false, that it was a trick, but others sat pale and wordless, remembering old scars. The galaxy had tried to erase humanity long ago. Empires had laughed when humans fell silent, believing them extinct or broken. But now, the darkness had spoken again, and the message was clear. On one empire's council floor, a minister whispered, "If they have even one ship like this, what if they have more?" On a pirate king's throne, the warlord threw his goblet aside, snarling, "If humans rise again, none of us are safe." And in the deepest chambers of the great galactic empire, the emperor himself sat alone, staring at the frozen image of the black warship. His hands trembled as he whispered to no one, We were arrogant, we thought them gone, but they have been watching. Back on the colony, the governor addressed his people. His voice carried through cracked speakers, weak but steady. We are alive. Not because of our strength, not because of our allies, but because something old and terrible chose to act. He paused, his eyes heavy. Remember this day. Not as our victory, but as a warning. The humans are not gone. They live, hidden in the blackness. And when they move, the galaxy trembles. The people listened, silent and wide-eyed. Some clapped and cheered, desperate to hold on to hope. Others bowed their heads, unsure if salvation had come or judgment. Above the broken colony, the wreckage of the enemy fleet still burned in the upper atmosphere. Bright trails streaked the sky like falling stars. Children pointed and shouted, believing them to be gifts of light. But the elders knew better. Those were ashes of pride, warnings written in fire. The technician whispered to herself as she stared at the horizon. If they could save us here, how many other worlds are they watching? The governor did not answer. His gaze stayed fixed on the stars. And in those stars, far from the colony, the warship drifted in silence. Its lights dimmed once more, blending into the void. No beacon, no signal, only a quiet shadow against the endless night. Inside its black hull, no voice spoke. No record was left. The galaxy would never know why it had chosen this colony, or why it had left without a word. But the fear remained, spreading faster than light. Empires would prepare, fleets would gather, councils would argue. But deep down, every leader, every soldier, every colonist knew one truth. The humans had returned, and they had not come to beg. They had not come to bargain. They had come to remind the galaxy that the dark was theirs,